play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for tuning in, whether you're listening live on, July 28th, Saturday, July 28th at 1 p.m. Central in the Little Rock, Central Arkansas area on 101.1 FM The Answer, or anywhere around the world on the online stream at 101.1fmtheanswer.com, or if you're listening by podcast or Krypton Radio or some other ways. I'm just so glad to have you. Got a great show today. Again, if you're listening live, this is live talk radio, first and foremost, followed a few days later by our podcast version, because I love both mediums. But if you're listening live, you can call in at 501-823-0965, or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. Again, the phone number is 501-823-0965, or you can tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays. So got a cool show today. As you may or may not know, but hopefully you'll know after today's show is over, for the second year in a row, I've partnered up with Carl Heyl of Arkansas RPG Con, and this year's Arkansas RPG Con is a mere 2 weeks away. Carl, say hi, right. Carl. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
There you go. Hello, everybody. So we've also got another guest hanging in the wings who I'll introduce here in a second. But August 11th, Maumelle Event Center, we'll have the second annual Arkansas RPG Con. The first Arkansas RPG Con was so successful, it outgrew itself in the first year. That's right. The center that was in. We'll talk more about Arkansas RPG Con in a second. We're also going to have a lot of D&D and RPG related news today and discussion. And we're about to be joined by our other geeky panel member, Jared Nielsen of Illusionist Magazine, Myth Horde, Loot Crate Service, and now World of Game Design. Jared, welcome back to Shane Plays.
Hey, you guys. Hi, Carl.
Hello, Jared.
All right. So, Jared, welcome back. Jared, like Shane Plays, Geek Talk Radio and podcast. Jared, last year, you were a sponsor of Arkansas RPG Con, I think under the Myth Horde banner, and this year you're doing it under World of Game Design. Is that correct?
We call that the early believer.
The early believer. What does that mean exactly?
We believed in Carl right at the beginning, and Shane Plays snagged us as the first sponsor before we were able to get there, but we were the second sponsor.
That's right. I did kind of slip in on that last year, didn't I? I was kind of like where'd this guy come from? Well, I've always enjoyed having you on the show, Jared. So when we talk about Kickstarter, RPG Kickstarters, or just whatever we're yapping about, love having you on. Carl, before I get to like the show notes and whatnot, why don't you give a quick overview of what Arkansas RPG Con is, when it is, what it costs, what they can do,
right,
where they need to go. And folks, yes, I know there's some people listening that the reason they're listening is because they want to hear when Carl turns registrations live for all the different scheduled games at tabletop events. And we will do that before the end of the show. And I promise you, I'm not going to wait till the end of the show. I'm not going to be a jerk like that. So it will be sometime during the show, but not the end. So anyway, take it away, Carl.
Arkansas RPG Con is a convention for all kinds of tabletop role-playing games. New school, old school, we don't care. We just want you to come and play some games. We have a huge amount of games on the schedule, and we'll probably add some more in the next 2 weeks. We currently have 33 games running.
Nice. How does that compare to last year? Do you remember how many you had last year?
I want to say it's about a 50% increase.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're going to be at the Maumelle Event Center this year, which is in North Little Rock. So don't let that confuse you. It's not in Maumelle. It's in North Little Rock, but it's the Maumelle Event Center on 10910 Maumelle Boulevard. And we are going to, the games will start at 10. So the event is from 10 to 10, but the doors will be open at 9:30. And so you can get there, kind of get situated. You're not going to have to rush straight to your table. 9:30, we'll have the doors open to the public to be able to come in and get situated, get to your first table, and maybe stop by a couple of our vendors. We're going to have a lot of vendors there, including World of Game Design will be back, Myth Horde as a vendor. And then we'll also have Game Goblins, Archangel Gaming, Crit Machines is going to be back, Dark Naga is going to be back, and we have some new ones, New Comet Games, who we met at North Texas RPG Con, Rubber Giraffe, and 3 Geeks and a Baby. So that's exciting, and also Tortured Earth. So lots of vendors, lots of gaming, all kinds of games all day on August 11th at the Maumelle Event Center.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that Game Goblins has also been a longtime sponsor of the Shane Plays Geek Talk radio show and podcast. I appreciate them very much. So again, real quick, how much is the badge?
A badge for Arkansas RPG Con 2 is $20.
Okay.
$20 for the whole day of gaming, access to the vendors and all the other stuff going on.
And that's unlimited, however many games they can fit themselves into.
There's no cost per game at all. It's just you get through the door and you're in.
Okay. And what I also saw you got some stuff like, I know you have vendors. You have a paint station, a free paint station.
That's exactly right. That's a new development that I did not write down. So let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
Mystery donor who wishes to remain unnamed has donated a Reaper paint and take, which is a thing that Reaper does where they send out paint and take tables. And it's a table full of miniatures, some paint, some brushes, and some guides. And you will paint a miniature and take it home with you.
Nice. So, and it's just, it doesn't cost anybody anything. So you got
no extra cost for that either.
Okay. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about Arkansas RPG Con later in the show, but give us an idea of the range of, and by RPG, we mean tabletop role-playing game. That doesn't mean somebody may bring a board game with them or card games or something for something that's spontaneous, sort of a pickup game, but the scheduled games are tabletop
RPGs.
Role-playing.
Yes,
okay.
This is a very focused convention, and I want to keep it that way. We actually have no board games on the schedule, no panels, no discussion forums or anything like that. This is a gaming convention, role-playing games all day long. That is what's on the schedule from all types of different, as free form as games like Fiasco, and we have old school D&D, new school D&D, lots of Dungeon Crawl classics, lots of Castles and Crusades. I'm excited to say we love Castles and Crusades here in Arkansas for sure.
Yeah, how many? Because when I scheduled my game, there wasn't
you were
any
the
Castles
first
and
one.
Crusades.
Yeah.
How much Castles and Crusades is there?
3.
Now? Okay, so I love Castles and Crusades. I have to admit, in fact, Troll Lord Games and Castles and Crusades is a sponsor of this show. However, had I known we would get that much Castles and Crusades, I would have probably run something else just to get a different diversify.
Yeah.
But I'm glad my game is going to be focused on.
You're a trendsetter.
I guess.
You backed RPG Con, then Jared jumped on it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
You started the CNC game, then I jumped
on it.
Then
everybody jumped on. So, but no, that's fine. More CNC. Castles and Crusades is a cool system, which is it was one of the first sort of OSR games that came out of the D20 SRD open gaming license kind of thing. And the Troll Lords are right here in Little Rock, so we like them a lot. Hey, Jared, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be bringing to the con?
So one of our most favorite events is Build Your Own Dungeons. So we bring, it's kind of half crafting, half role-playing, but the events that we run, we have a couple of role-playing games. We actually...
Hold on, you cut in and out for a second. I don't know if it was your cell phone or what. Kind of, if you would back up about 5 seconds and restart, just so we make sure we get what you're saying.
So what we're trying to do is craft during the day and then game during the afternoon. So we have what's called Build Your Own Dungeon, and we will have all of our Hearst Arts molds and our custom speed molds with plaster. And you can pour every single modular dungeon piece that you want and then game with it during the rest of the afternoon.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm going to get us to some show notes, and then we are going to talk more about Arkansas RPG Con. And we have a lot of news, RPG and D&D related news. This wasn't intended to be a, hey, let's look at Kickstarter show. But there's a lot of really cool stuff that happened on Kickstarter this week with tabletop role-playing games. So that will definitely be in the mix. And Carl, just wanted to give you got a shout out on Twitter from Jeff Croson. Said, hey, looking forward to a great Arkansas RPG Con. Lots of great game masters running lots of great games. Something for everyone. So thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Looking forward to seeing you. Remember, it's 2 weeks from now, not next weekend. The reason I'm doing it today, 2 weeks ahead of time, is to give plenty of time for the podcast and the Krypton radio version to get out there. And so that way people don't hear the show and they're like, but the con's already over with. So we're doing it 2 weeks ahead of time this year. Okay, we're going to do some show notes. Move the show right along, folks, and we will definitely have some more RPG, D&D, and Arkansas RPG Con discussion with Carl Heyl and Jared Nielsen with you here momentarily. And don't forget, during the show, and again, I promise not at the end of the show, Carl is going to unleash the floodgates. Here we go. Again, here's the show notes that are always so much fun. Show notes and links for the show are up at shaneplays.com, ShanePlays.com. And you can always find blog posts and other things, including the archived versions of these shows. Last week's show is archived on the blog, and that was Hero U, Rogue to Redemption, the adventure RPG game with Corey and Lori Cole. Plus Matt Barton of Matt Chat. That was a fun show. The podcast, this show is live talk radio, but it does go out as a podcast on the blog at Shane Plays, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and more, including we're being picked up on Podbean now. And last but never least, Shane Plays is also carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. Got a couple of shout outs here. One, Carl, you probably saw this news flying around recently. We have a board game company right here that Little Rock Games has fired up here in Little Rock, strangely enough. I had them on a show a few weeks ago to help promote their Kickstarter, Galactic Scoundrels, and they did fund at 158% of their goal. So they hit a couple of stretch goals they're wanting to hit as well. So congratulations to the crew at Little Rock Games. Love to see all this cool geeky things happening right here in Central Arkansas. I get a lot of feedback. I'm hearing it more and more lately that people are talking about that there's just there's a lot of comic book activity happening here in Central Arkansas. You got the con, Arkansas RPG Con. You've got, Little Rock Games. There's just more and more stuff seems to be. And here's another example. Now, this Tuesday, July 31st is your last chance to take advantage of this. This is a PSA. This is not a paid ad. A D&D player that used to be in my group asked me if I could help promote this. I said, sure. But every Tuesday night in July, the Movie Tavern in Little Rock is having D&D adventures. So this Tuesday night, the 31st, is the last chance for you to take advantage of that. It says DMs will host from 7 to 9. It's bring your own dice and a hearty thirst. There will be signature drinks, the Nat 20 for those of age, and the Nat 20. Oh, it's the Nat 20 in general, and if you're of age, the Nat 21 signature drink. The dice may fail you, but this drink won't. All participants must be 18 plus and will have opportunity to win our grand prize for the MVP. All players are invited to come early to create a character or can choose from our pre-made selections. That's just the Movie Tavern in Little Rock this Tuesday night for your last chance to do that. I don't know what the grand prize is. As I've said before, I would suspect, since it's the Movie Tavern, probably dinner and a movie. But I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't been to the Movie Tavern yet. I know some people have gone. I'm glad that we have it here because that little... I forget what that's called, the outlets or whatever. You got like Dave and Buster's, and now you've got the Movie Tavern and all that going on out there. So that's really good. So, all right, Zach, I got to do it to you. Got to do it to you, pal. For those of y'all that don't know, and I know there's probably people listening for the first time today because they're just like, man, when are these signups for Arkansas RPG Con going to happen? Well, if you don't know, the head of my news team, Sal, he's the one responsible for getting all this great news together. His grandmother and her dog Muffin, they get like truly upset with me if I don't banter with my engineer, Zach. I mean, like really upset. Longtime listeners of the show know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't mess with Muffin. That's all I got to say. All right. So Zach, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing good.
Are you? Mm-hmm. All right. I got something just for you. I dug up to talk to just about you.
Okay.
When I say the word Broly to you, what does that mean?
I think of a character from Dragon Ball Z.
What is about Broly that's a big deal?
Yeah, because I've never been that interested in his character. I just know that he's a He's really just a big, villain for Goku.
He's evidently a legendary Super Saiyan.
Right.
So there's two things going on with Broly right now that I keep seeing pop up in my Twitter feed and online, other places.
Okay.
So first of all, they're doing Dragon Ball Super movies. Now that the Dragon Ball Super series has ended in Japan, now we're still getting episodes here in the States as it catches up on Toonami and all that. But in Japan, it's ended.
Right.
But they're starting to do Dragon Ball Super movies. And I guess this first Dragon Ball Super movie is going to have Broly.
And I will go see that too.
Right. So, which people are like, cool, because I guess this brings Broly into canon. I guess knowing what's canon and what's not canon in Dragon Ball. I'm still learning my Dragon Ball.
Well, people were upset because one of the characters in Dragon Ball Super is sort of similar to Broly. And, you had all these irate fans basically like, why don't they just bring Broly into canon? So I guess this
they're doing it.
It's for that case.
They're doing it. So they're doing it. But anyway, so there's a couple things going on. One, the Dragon Ball Super movie, which I don't think is out yet. It's being made.
I think it's later this year.
Right. Is going to have Broly in it. And then also in September, they're re-releasing the Dragon Ball Z Broly movie in theaters. That's not the Dragon Ball Super movie. They're re-releasing a previous Dragon Ball Z movie and that's going to be in September.
Yeah.
So there you go. Will you go see that?
I may or may not.
You may or may not?
I definitely want to see the newer one, but probably, I don't know. I probably could find this one online somewhere.
Oh, in a legal fashion, of course.
Yes, of course.
Because Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio and 101 FM The Answer and Krypton Radio would never encourage, endorse, either implicitly on accident, illegal activity.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You can pay for stuff online.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's been out for like 23 years now, I believe.
It's out there. We talked last week, Microsoft was giving away season 1 of Dragon Ball Z for free. Legally. What the heck? All right. Moving right along. Let's see what time we have here. 1:22. Okay, folks, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to get to a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to start talking about D&D news. There's lots of D&D and RPG news out there. And just naturally, we'll also be talking about Arkansas RPG Con because some of these games and these news items are at Arkansas RPG Con. And sometime between the first and second break, Carl is going to give me the big thumbs up and tell me that he has opened the floodgates. I've got a new ad I'm going to read here before we get to a break. For the comic book store and collector's edition. Michael Tierney was like, man, we need to update that ad. It's been going for like 3 years now. And I said, yep, you're right. So here we go. In the future, this will be recorded and edited with music and all that good stuff. But I'm going to read it this time because I haven't had time to record it and edit it. Comic book lovers, head to Michael Tierney's local comic book stores for the newest books on the shelves, plus a fantastic selection of back issues. Visit the comic book store on Treasure Hill Road in Little Rock and Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock. And don't forget to click on over to thewildstars.com. Michael Tierney knows comics. In addition to being in business for nearly 4 decades and publishing his own comic book series, The Wild Stars, for almost as long and still going, he has written multiple columns for comics magazines, is an Overstreet Price Guide advisor, and is also the author of the wildly successful, high-quality 4-volume Labor of Love. Those are my own words. Those weren't Michael's. The wildly successful, high-quality 4-volume Labor of Love, the Edgar Rice Burroughs 100-Year Art Chronology. Those things are sweet. You go check them out. He's got demo copies in his store, or stores. I know he's got one at Collector's Edition. Remember, for all your comic book needs with friendly service, make sure to visit the comic book store on Treasure Hill Road in Little Rock, Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock, and thewildstars.com to learn more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you.
Whether you are crawling through dark dungeons
Carl,
of the
what ad is
1970s
this?
or exploring fantastic modern narratives, Arkansas RPG Con has a game for you. Arkansas RPG Con is a convention for all kinds of tabletop role-playing games. We'll have old school Dungeons & Dragons, new school Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Starfinder, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Fiasco, Traveler, and Arkansas's own Castles and Crusades, and many other games. Games will be running all day on August 11th at the Maumelle Event Center in North Little Rock. Go to arpgcon.com for all the details. Arkansas RPG Con is brought to you by Shane Plays Radio, World of Game Design, and Theater Elf. We'll see you on August 11th at Arkansas RPG Con.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today. The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Troll Lord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. This is your host, Shane Stacks. I'm joined by Carl Heyl of Arkansas RPG Con, which is coming up in 2 weeks. We've been talking about. You're still the host of Save or Die podcast, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, Save or Die. So is DM Crispy? Is it Crispy?
Crispy, yeah.
Crispy. Is he still flapping his lips with you on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
You know, the OSR podcast scene out there is really big. It's a lot bigger than I realized. There's a lot of people out there talking about that stuff. And if you don't know, if you're listening, you don't know what I'm talking about. We're talking about, I don't know, there's different definitions. I call it old school rules.
But you know, OSR is fine.
Yeah, it's just
everybody knows what you're talking about
yeah,
when you
we're
say OSR.
either playing the literal old school games or we're playing games that are designed to evoke that feel. And then we're also talking with Jared Nielsen of Illusionist Magazine, Myth Horde Loot Crate Service, and then also World of Game Design, who is a sponsor. And Jared has been on the show more than once. Welcome back, Jared. So,
thank you, guys.
Yeah, man, so glad to have you. And you know, Jared, man, every time I look for Jared online, he's doing so many different things. That guy does a lot of stuff.
I assume he's just ridiculously busy all the time.
He's all over the place. So, and tell us real quick. Tell us about Theater Elf. What does Theater Elf do?
Well, Theater Elf is a local sponsor that wanted to help out with Arkansas RPG Con, and I don't know that I can say more than that.
Well, no, don't.
Lots of mysteries.
Lots of. You think?
Yeah, I'm not. There's not much more to it than that. She's a local sponsor. She enjoyed last con
and wanted to help out.
She's coming back this year and wanted to help out, and she became a sponsor.
Well, cool. Well, she sent me a message and said, "Hey, this is Theater Elf. I'm a sponsor too." So, Theater Elf, if you're listening, looking forward.
Let me know if there's something you want me to plug. I will plug it.
Yeah, we'll be happy to plug it, and I'll push it out on social media for you as well. Okay, guys, we have some news to dig into here. Y'all ready?
Yes.
All right. Since Jared has gotten to talk the least, so far. Jared, out of all those news items we've been kicking around all week, or if you have something of your own, do you have a particular news item that you want to discuss first? If not, I'll just throw one out there.
So I do have a day life, and when I'm not being a superhero at night, I am in the high finance investment community, and this Asmodee acquisition by venture capital firms is a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Private equity firms that are snapping up these licenses. I mean, just imagine if you're Comcast and Disney bidding on the rights of Fox just so you can get Deadpool into your Marvel movies. You know, it's like there's this big gobble up for whatever is occupying people's attention span, and it's just a weird crossover now into tabletop board games and role-playing games, and Magic the Gathering is now going to have role-playing games. And even stranger, I was walking through the store the other day and there was Overwatch branded cereal. So
what? I mean, say that again.
Yeah.
Say that again. What
Overwatch is a really popular, conquest game that people play. It's a first-person shooter, and they're branding Underoos with this stuff. So don't forget that we are in the business of building iconic brands, and don't underestimate the power. If you can do $1 million Kickstarter, some private equity firm is probably interested in you.
All right. Well, there you go. So now we talked about this a little bit. Carl and Jared and I have had a Facebook messenger group going on all week, just kind of kicking stuff around. And Asmodee does not, that I'm aware of, they don't have any tabletop RPG products, but there is sort of a relationship between board games and tabletop role-playing games, and how,
Right. Well, you also need to kind of extrapolate how big this is, because when you say Asmodee, that may not mean anything to anybody, but they're a parent company of tons of companies.
Well, they bought Mayfair, which is Catan, for just one example.
Right, and Plaid Hat is under them. And then Plaid Hat does have a board game RPG light in Mice and Mystics, which is kind of an RPG-ified board game, or a board game-ified RPG.
Well, however you want to slice it.
Sure.
The point is, this is an over $1 billion deal, and this is going to. They just sold. Who was it they sold to, Jared? I mean, I'm sure that's just another holding company name, but who's actually got them now? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, these private equity firms have really fun names, though. For example, if your company's going out of business and you have no future, there's a private equity firm called Cerberus Capital, which is the three-headed dog that guards the underworld. Huh. And their job is to bury your company. So the minute you get bought by Cerberus, you know that they're going to carve up your company.
You're going down. All right. Well, okay. Anyway, the point is, just want to make people aware of that. It's going to impact the tabletop games hobby in some form or fashion. Maybe good.
Let me give a pointer. If you own a property and you think no one would possibly want to buy me, then you don't understand private equity. What a roll-up does is they go buy 100 different companies, and then they go find a buyer. And if they can buy any other property to add to that stack, they'll do it, because they just want to pile up a whole bunch of more resources and sell them to the private equity firm. So you'll notice that Alderac Entertainment was selling some properties, not their company, but a couple of games. Everybody got into this, and they were loading Asmodee up with all these properties, whether they were merchandisable or not. And then everybody was making money. So don't miss out on the train next time this happens.
What's interesting is I had the authors of the Overstreet tabletop, the Overstreet Guide to Collecting Tabletop Games. That's how big tabletop has gotten right now. Is there's actually a guide out for collecting tabletop games, and we talked about Asmodee at one point, and I said, Asmodee is buying things left and right now to make themselves more appealing to sell. And, one of the guests went, yeah, but they always do that. And they never said, and then boom, 2 weeks later they sold. So you never know, what's going to, and this is somebody in the know of the board game world. You just never know what's going to happen. But that is an interesting news item, because somehow it's going to affect the tabletop gaming hobby. I mean, the amount of IPs and games that are now under that umbrella and have now been bought by somebody else, that's a big deal. So, all right, Carl, did you have a news item that you wanted to make sure got thrown in the mix?
I think there's some discussion to be had about the CEO of Wizards of the Coast.
Oh yeah,
he was on I think it was CNN.
He was on Mad Money with Kramer.
Okay.
Yeah, the crazy guy with the baseball bat that talks. Yeah.
And he talked about how D&D was having its best sales year ever, is what he said. Now, I don't know if he's containing that within WotC or if he's going all the way back to the early 80s when it was a worldwide brand.
From what I understand, now I don't know if it's price adjusted to $80 versus.
Right.
But I've heard multiple, not just from this article, but multiple sources say that it's the biggest year that D&D, and I would say as a brand, has ever had.
Yeah.
Because WotC is definitely trying to position D&D as a multi-platform experience. So, yeah, I said this is on CNBC. Dungeons & Dragons is having its best year ever, Hasbro CEO says. And Hasbro, of course, owns WotC. WotC bought TSR, which originally created D&D. Yeah, he said Dungeons & Dragons is seeing its best year ever. Hasbro chairman and CEO Brian Goldner tells CNBC's Jim Cramer. Now, here's what's interesting to me. This is actually more interesting to me than it's the best year ever, only because I guess I've been seeing that headline a little bit, like among like the inner D&D community or whatever.
Right.
He says immersive games like these could one day be ripe for global esports competition.
Global esports.
Yeah, I got to know, if you're listening out there, do you want to turn on ESPN and watch people play D&D?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't turn on ESPN to watch anything else.
Well, me neither. Or neither or whatever. But the point, I remember I was like ESPN2 or something like 20 years ago. I'm like, they're playing Magic the Gathering. That seemed boggling then. But, that's a huge tournament and competition thing. What about you, Jared? What do you think about this esports angle?
Well, I mean, I am the most athletic Dungeons and Dragons esports guy on the planet. I mean, why am I not in the golden circle there? But, it was interesting. I heard on the news the other day that colleges are now offering $50,000 scholarships for esports players, and they're building $1 million stadiums for esports at the universities that's basically filled with a bunch of laptops and big screens that people can watch people play games.
Right.
And they're also finding that people will watch a past Twitch stream just like watching reruns of the Super Bowl. And so as far as the industry is concerned, it's all about eyeballs. And Dungeons & Dragons is a performance sport. It's basically play acting live that's, like comedians would do, where they would just stand together and like Saturday Night Live, except it's a serious, epic story. And the people that are jumping on this to monetize and get some press are really succeeding, because either a whole crowd full of people that have been following just on their Twitch streams, then when they do Kickstarters, monetize that for millions of dollars.
All right, so I want to move us on because we have a lot of news items, but I do want to say I'm curious, and I'd love for people to either post on the Arkansas RPG Con Facebook page or maybe tweet me at Shane Plays. When they say esports, are they talking about the video game versions, or are they talking about, because used to in tournaments, and I'm sure they still do, there was a way of playing D&D where you scored points on what you did, like on a tabletop version.
AD&D was generated for tournaments. Tournaments were hard to run in D&D because it was so loosey-goosey. My guess is this guy doesn't really know what esports means, and he's throwing
it's
the
just
word
a
out there.
buzzword.
CEOs oftentimes don't know their product as well as they just know the numbers.
We're going to weaponize the viral nature of D&D to reverse heterodyne the esports aspect. I don't know. That's as good a take as any. That's as good. Thanks for both of your takes on that. But yeah, I want
to point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to point out that Luke Gygax and Stefan Picorni are doing a live stream today. If you catch it on Twitch, twitch.tv/DND. And they're basically doing an esports broadcast on the D&D Twitch channel today.
Right. And they're also, and of course you got Critical Role, but I haven't thought of those as esports, but I guess they could be. Why not? Right. But no, that ties into another little factoid here. I believe Jared or Carl, help me out here. Is it yesterday or today that's considered Founders Day for D&D?
That's what Jared was just talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
It's today.
It's today is Founders Day, but for some reason I was thinking yesterday was Gary Gygax's birthday.
Gygax Day.
Okay.
So Gary Gygax Day is a day where people get together to
but it's his
play
birthday,
games and celebrate
right?
on his birthday.
Okay.
Yes. Founders Day, just because I assume it landed on a Saturday, is today.
Okay.
And that's what Stefan Picorni and Lou Gygax
Right,
are
but that's to
involved
honor
with.
Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, right?
Right, and luminaries within the RPG industry that are kind of like Stefan Picorni, who's been around for a long time.
Well,
and
he's
really helped
Dwarven Forge.
Absolutely,
He's a nut. I had him on the show. Love the guy. He's a nut. He's an unstoppable force of positive, energetic nature.
Yeah,
so
I really
he's
like
crazy.
that guy.
Yeah, I love Stefan Picorni. So, all right. So today is D&D.
But as we know, every day is RPG Day, though, right?
Every day is RPG Day. By goodness. All right. I think I can squeeze another news item or two in here before we get to another break. I did want to let, if we're talking OSR, I did want to let people know this isn't technically a news item. It's more of a self-promo, but it's also throwing some love out there for the West End Games Star Wars D6 system RPG. Fantasy Flight Games just released their 30th anniversary edition of that, and it's like a 99.5% accurate reproduction of the original rule book and source book from 30 years ago. And I've got an unboxing video out there. Just go to the Shane Plays Facebook page or shaneplays.com, or go find, just type in Shane Plays Star Wars RPG unboxing on YouTube or something like that. And I kind of bust it open and take a look at it. I was very impressed.
Right.
In fact, one of the comments I got on YouTube was somebody was like, I was expecting more because it was talking about the colors and the amount of color photos, and so they're actually dinging it because it's such an accurate reproduction of the original.
The expectation of quality has gone up so much,
right? So much,
but that's kind of interesting because the OSR, in its beginnings, was kind of focused on Dungeons and Dragons,
right?
But there was a lot of role-playing games in the 70s and 80s then, and looking into new genres was always a thing they were doing. TSR itself looked into science fiction, Western. I mean, there was a Dallas role-playing game at one point.
Yeah, I read
so just looking for new types of products and product identities to turn into a role-playing game was kind of a thing early on.
Right, and we're kind of seeing that again. That everything's being turned into a role-playing game. So, and I think we're going to do like one more news item, and then I'm going to get to a break. Carl, got a break coming up.
Before we talk about that news item, why don't we do a quick opening of the ticket sales?
What is this I hear? I should have come up with a dramatic. Hold on, I'll try to do a creaking drawbridge going. Hold on. Watch out, it's going to hit. Boom. Are the gates open?
Right.
That was the most horrible sound effect.
It is open.
All right, folks, go to Arkansas RPG. We should hallelujah. Can you find the hallelujah chorus on YouTube? Zach Handel's Messiah. Hallelujah. It's open. All of y'all that have been putting up with me to wait for that. I know you've been loving Carl and Jared, but if you've been putting up with me for 37 minutes now for that. It's open now. You can go to Arkansas RPG Con 2018 on tabletop events and jump on into your games of choice. Get on over there. So there's a lot more interest in the con this year than last year because it's been around a little bit longer and it's being promoted even more and everything. So, all right, let's do one more news item here. And this is a nice segue, actually, Carl, because you said, it wasn't just D&D. There's a lot of old games that
That's
people
a great
love.
Carl impression.
Was it? Oh, that's just my generic anybody impression. Hold on, I'll try to be Carl because Carl's got a smooth voice. Shane, it wasn't just D&D. I can't do your voice. You've got a great voice. You're one of those people who's got a great voice without even trying. So,
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So, okay. I did want to say one other thing about the Star Wars role-playing game 30th anniversary. It's ironic that got pointed out as well by that one viewer because when the Star Wars rulebook and source book came out from West End Games 30 years ago, it was amazing. You had all these full color, like fake ads for astromechs and join the Imperial. I mean, they moved it a step forward.
Right.
But yet, looking back 30 years, you're like, oh, this is, wow, look at this design. And if people don't know, Star Wars RPG also had a huge influence on the Star Wars movies, extended universe books, because they didn't have any lore.
Right.
So they made it up.
This was the first expansion of the Star Wars
Yeah,
lore.
yeah, it'd been around for
what
10
we've
years.
seen.
And a lot of the stuff that they made up for the game made it in Twi'leks. I always forget, what's the name of the Star Wars language? Arabesh?
I don't know.
Yeah, they made that up. When Timothy Zahn was writing Heir to the Empire, they gave him all the source books and said, here's some stuff to play with. I mean, it had a huge impact on modern Star Wars as we know it today. All right, this is a nice segue, though, both for, hey, there's other games other than D&D and in the OSR movement, and it's one of our news items, and I understand this game is going to be played at Arkansas RPG Con by my friend Tony Dutra, who's a Steve Jackson Games, the Fantasy Trip.
Yeah.
One of the original fantasy RPG games by Steve Jackson himself is tearing it up on Kickstarter.
Right.
Who wants, Jared or Carl? Which one of y'all want to take that?
I think if it's, the early 80s, late 70s, and somebody asks you if you want to go on a fantasy trip, you go, heck yeah, man.
Heck yeah.
And then you're pretending to be a wizard and wondering what happened.
You're like, man, that was crazy.
That was
man.
not what I expected, but still fun.
Well, check this out. Jared, you keep up with Kickstarters pretty well. What do you think of, they just opened it up this week. They only wanted $20,000. And within like 2 or 3 days, they're already at $134,000. What do you think about that as a Kickstarter?
Well, you know what that speaks to. Number one, I'm sure Steve Jackson was on a fantasy trip at that point in time.
You think?
But and he'll probably proudly admit it. But the thing to look at is when you do a Kickstarter, it's all about the reach that you have, and everybody loves Steve Jackson. He's as old school as Gary Gygax, in my opinion.
Right.
He just came a little later to the game, and people love the guy. Plus, he's been sued by the CIA and had all his computers confiscated because he posted
True story.
a role-playing game about hacking. And,
True story.
it's just, yeah. So, but look at the people that he's got attached to his project. So every time you do a Kickstarter, it's all about everyone who loves you, but it's also, you got Liz Danforth doing some of the art, and those people have huge followings as well. But it really boils down to when you're doing a role-playing game and you have earned the loyalty of other really talented creators, it says something about you, and he deserves it. He deserves a good success.
Right. Well, and it's the fantasy trip, just really quick from the Kickstarter. It says, how did they do it? He created the fantasy trip even before GURPS, which I would say is Steve Jackson's most well-known role-playing game, although he's created all kinds of other games. But yeah, it said in 1977, this is according to the Kickstarter page for the fantasy trip, Steve started working on his first role-playing game, the fantasy trip. It was published by Metagaming, and for a brief time, it even rivaled D&D for popularity. The fantasy, and most people think of Tunnels and Trolls as the main D&D competitor for a short time, but the fantasy trip was out there, and it was published first as a series of micro games and later expanded with full size books. And according to Steve Jackson himself, in an interview way back in 1977, he said the fantasy trip started as an attempt to design a more playable FRP, fantasy role-playing game system. We wanted well-organized rules, streamlined action, and all the bugs out. The fantasy trip has evolved into much more. So if I would love to have this. And at 10 a.m., August 11th, Arkansas RPG Con, Tony Dutra, who's a Steve Jackson Games rep, has received permission to run the fantasy trip at Arkansas RPG Con.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go check that out, folks. All right, I got to get us to a break. When we come back, we'll talk a bit more about Arkansas RPG Con. Don't forget, event registrations are now open at Arkansas. Did you find the Hallelujah Chorus, Zach? Did you find it yet? See if you can find it for us when we come back from break. If you don't have time, no, we're out. Hallelujah. Okay, anyway. So, we've got to talk, when we come back from the break, we got to talk about this Troll Lord Games Kickstarter.
Absolutely.
Not only are they a sponsor, but this is a cool Kickstarter. We've got another Kickstarter by Monty Cook Games. We've got the Expanse role-playing game Kickstarter is going berserker. We've got a couple of new settings coming from D&D. I don't know if we'll get time to talk about all this stuff, but we will try. And then there's also a news item. I'll definitely make sure to add the show notes. Adventure Zone graphic novel tops New York Times trade fiction bestseller list. The Adventure Zone is a podcast of people playing D&D. Yeah. Now they turned it into a graphic novel.
They're the kind of thing CEOs called esports.
Yeah, esports. And esports. And but anyway, so a podcast turned into a graphic novel.
Right.
Both of which are based on D&D, is now in the New York Times trade fiction bestseller list. It's a good time to be a gamer, folks. All right, I'm gonna get it to a break. I don't know why I said break, but I did. And then when we come back, we'll pack in as much news as we can for more D&D and RPG news. So, some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. I'd like to also mention Game Goblins does a great job of getting product in from Kickstarters. I see that a lot. In fact, they back the retail pledge level a lot to get that stuff in. In fact, I bought Tunnels and Trolls, the Kickstarted Tunnels and Trolls over at Game Goblins.
And they support RPGs a lot.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. That's no joke. They really do have gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. First-time customers, mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. And that is, of course, to celebrate the fact that Carl Heyl has unleashed the gates, opened the gates.
Tickets are available now.
Yeah, you've been able to get your badge for quite a while for Arkansas RPG Con, but Carl has opened up event registration. So you got 2 weeks to get in there and get signed up.
Just go to arpgcon.com to get those tickets.
There you go.
Yep. And I see people have already subscribed. You're on a roll here.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to get in there and grab my game yet. So, and I'm running, if anybody, wants to have a really terrible, great game experience, I'm running sort of an introductory Castles of Crusades game. I think was 5 or 6, something like that. All right. So, but there's plenty of games to choose from. All right. Man, we got 7 minutes? We got 7 minutes to try to truck through some news items.
Can we talk about Troll Lord?
We can. Before we do that, I wanted to make sure people know. Now, I want to be really clear here. Game Goblins is a sponsor of mine. They do a great job for the gaming community in Little Rock. And I have turned away other gaming sponsors that are in the same space. I said it's just an hour show. I'm not going to have 2 game stores as a sponsor. However, I do want to say that this is for charity, raising money for Arkansas Children's Hospital today, going until whenever tonight. There's 3 continuous sessions. There's like 40-something people playing, like 9 DMs over at Imagine Games today in Sherwood, Arkansas. And you jump in, and they're going to have this big, it's almost like a World of Warcraft style raid. Everybody's going to come together tonight and fight the big baddie. It's to raise money for Arkansas Children's Hospital. So if you're interested, get on over to Imagine Games in Sherwood, Arkansas. And that was a PSA. That was not an ad. Okay, Carl.
Yes.
You're literally slavering. Tell us about the Troll Lord Games Kickstarter.
Well, I love Castles and Crusades, and Troll Lord Games publishes that, but they also publish stuff for 5th edition fantasy.
They do.
And this current Kickstarter, it's a World of Aird, which is the Troll Lord campaign setting.
Right.
And it is for 5th edition fantasy. But it will also include, and I've heard from the trolls on their Facebook group, stuff to convert 5th edition fantasy ideas to Castles and Crusades.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea because Castles and Crusades, it was ahead of its time. About 2 editions ahead of its time. I'm just saying, Castles and Crusades is a lot like 5th edition, and there's a lot of stuff from 5th edition that'll carry over pretty well into it.
Right. Yeah, and they've been out there. A lot of people don't know. Troll Lord Games worked with Gary Gygax after TSR to publish some of his stuff. And I mean, these guys have got true gaming cred. So, and I'm not just saying that because of their sponsor. They're cool guys. I like, Steve Chenault and Todd and Tim Burns, Mark Sandy, Tylermo. I guess I've recently learned there's a Tylermo involved. Oh, he of the beard. So, yeah, check out Troll Lord Games stuff. And they do Victorious, which is a Victorian era, almost like superhero. They do Amazing Adventures, which is like a pulp thing. So yeah, I did want to, man, I could almost put a whole show on that. I'm just going to mention really quickly, D&D did announce 2 settings for 5th edition this week. And I got to be honest, these are the first announcements since 5th edition came out that I'm just like, I'm just not that excited. But there are other people who are.
Right.
More power to them. Ravnica is the Magic the Gathering sort of default setting, I guess, if you will. There is lore to Magic the Gathering, even though it's a card game. And they're coming out with a full-on hardback setting book for Ravnica. Eberron is going to be done purely via the DM's Guild, and there's sort of a Wayfarer's Guide to Eberron on the DM's Guild that's available now that kind of gives you all you need to know to write DM's Guild stuff for Eberron. So I'm excited they're doing stuff for Eberron because there's a lot of Eberron lovers. I'm not excited they're doing it just in the DM's Guild. I don't think that's cool, but that's their,
I think the exciting thing about that is that provides an opportunity for original creators to get involved with their campaign worlds.
But what about the game retailers? So there's another aspect to it. So, all right, we got 3 minutes left here. All right, Jared, was there any other news items you definitely wanted to mention briefly before we ended today?
Well, I will say that we're kicking off the first inaugural Troll Lord Crate at the ARPG Con. So
cool.
Awesome.
If you guys want to come by the booth, we're kicking off episode number 1. So you can get subscribed at trolllordcrate.com. And we're going to try to really promote their new products that they got coming out.
Nice. Okay. And Jared, I'm looking forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Jared does so much cool. He does Myth Horde, does Illusionist Magazine, World of Game. There's so much cool stuff. You got to go by and talk to Jared. And is your lovely wife going to be with you again this year?
Yeah, and the only reason she's coming is because she really enjoyed spending time with Carl's wife. So
okay, there you go.
They're the real power behind the convention. Carl does a great job, but his wife is amazing, and
she's the true power behind the throne. All right. All right, folks, don't forget Arkansas RPG Con. I got 2 minutes here to draw us down. Arkansas RPG Con, August 11th, Maumelle Event Center, $20 gets you in. And after that, whatever you want to do, it gets you in. It's going to be the Maumelle Event Center, August 11th. Go to arpgcon.com.
Right.
You can also look for Arkansas RPG Con on tabletop events where you can get your badge and sign up for games and that sort of stuff. I'm going to super quick. The Expanse role-playing game is killing it on Kickstarter. That's, of course, the science fiction book and TV series that's been so popular. They've raised $230,000 out of $30,000 goal. And that's in a week. I mean, this week was nuts for Kickstarters. And then also Monty Cook Games is kickstarting a book called Your Best Game Ever, which is a resource for players and games to, if you play or run role-playing games, you want to check it out, according to them. And it's raised $132,000 out of a $50,000 goal. So RPGs and Kickstarters have gone berserker this week. So, all right, folks, Arkansas RPG Con, Carl Heyl will be there. His lovely wife will be there. Jared Nielsen will be there. His lovely wife will be there.
And 33 games plus.
33 games plus. Okay, I got to end this with the bad joke of the week. Are y'all ready? This one's really bad.
Good.
This one's really, really bad. All right. Beware the weregoat, for they are bad.
That is a bad
That
joke.
was bad, wasn't it? Folks, we'll see you in 2 weeks at Arkansas RPG Con and in a week right here on Shane Plays Geek Talk.
The smell of mildew emanates from wet stone walls. The only choices before you are to enter the door to the north or travel back up the stairs from whence you came.
Okay. I go to the door to the north.
In this room you encounter an event promoter.
Arkansas RPG Con is the Arkansas convention for all tabletop role-playing games.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.